On the 28th of December 2016. This is a special presentation from Boston Red on the World. That is an international component here, and Boston Red, we're coming to you on the Boston Red Network and WBRN Radio in Boston. The Prime Minister, John Kerry, made his final speech at the Department of State in Washington, D.C. today. He reinforced the stance of the Obama administration on the recent resolution at the United Nations. That was just a number of resolutions at the UN. If we go back to 242, the Oslo Accord, and various other implementations. We go through many presidents that have been involved in the making there of what is now known as the State of Israel. But one has to understand, before the nomads arrived back in 1948, 1949, 1948, the Palestinians were already on the land. They were the land. And now you'll hear much about sovereignty and land claims. Now, the land claims of the Israelis are based not upon a history or a scientific claim. They are based totally on serendipity. It is a religious claim. Now, those of us that look at materialism as how the world is glued together can only see their claim as part of idealism. It's sort of like running around looking for miracles under rocks. There are none. The rock is the rock. If you throw the rock to a wall, you'll hear a sound. If you throw a so-called miracle, if it were possible to throw one, you would get nothing. So if we look at this history very closely, we can understand what the problem is, the nomads. There was peace in Palestine before the nomads came back home again. Now the problem is in 2016 they are there. But they've also caused the Nasba. And that Secretary Kerry emphasized today, the Nasba is a confusion, dislocation, misery, whatever you want to call it, of the Palestinian people who have been forced to suffer in an apartheid nation under one of the most racist regimes in the world. And the U.S. has only tacitly recognized that. But what is happening now with the incoming right-wing administration will be on the same mark as the administration of the racist Bibi Netanyahu and his racist organization in the Israeli state, the administration of DJ Trump. Now, no matter where DJ Trump decides to go, he can support moving the capital to Jerusalem, where it should not be. He can support building 1 million new settlements on the bank. But this will not change the dynamic on the international scene. What it will do is move towards Section 7 of the UN Charter, which calls for settlements. Now, we at this mic feel very strongly that a settlement must be imposed. Now, this is where we depart from Brother Kerry, on the parties there, and a fair and just settlement there by the international community, the quartet, whoever you want to call them. Now, in absence of this, actions are going to be taken. It's not to say they may be taken, they will be taken. You'll see that this state treated as South Africa was. You'll have boycotts, disinvestment. You already have academic boycotts. Entertainers will not perform in this gangster operation. You will see a concerted effort of that. That will be the answer to this new cabal, I guess you'd call it, the DJ Trump operation and the now Netanyahu gang, and these gangs will be there. But the big question is with DJ Trump and his quote-unquote supporters, they're also marching in Montana under a Nazi flag. Now, where the Netanyahu gang fits in with the Nazis, who knows? But there are some of these people, they call them neo-Nazis, what do they want to call themselves, in Europe that are wanting to encompass these right-wing gangs in the Israeli state. And as these right-wing gangs consolidate, you will see more cooperation between them. They will just be one big right-wing gang. Now, this gang out in Montana, or the gang that's coming to Montana, they call themselves, I think, the Stormer, maybe the Storm Troops. But this is where the policy is going. So civilized nations have to make statements, and Brother Kerry's is only the start. This is a very moderate statement he made today. Very, very moderate. And his statement in itself is a benchmarker. And we've seen various Zionist troublemakers on various social media channels attacking Brother Kerry. They use some liberty group which is to the right of Tillahan and to the right of the so-called truthers that got into the Kerry campaign and caused us literally 4 more years of misery under G.W. Bush and a depression. Now, this is what can happen when you get, now they call it the fake news out there. Well, this is the fake news. These characters will stop at nothing. But what they have to understand is their circumference, their support mechanism is much smaller every day. In part due to the characters like in Montana. That does have some, as they say, type of sounding board within the American society, unfortunately. But the blame can go to Tel Aviv and the Netanyahu gang there that is precipitating this. Now, they'll have some right-winger called Freeman there that does not recognize the Palestinians. That is not a problem. The Palestinians have to move forward, even at the expense of continual extermination. And we're talking about people living behind walls. People cannot travel freely, a violation, obviously, of international law. And with the sanctions on the Section 7, not only will the Netanyahu regime and future right-wing regimes, they will be called to The Hague. They'll be there with Charles Taylor to make account of themselves for war crimes. And that is where this is going. Now, will this go there under the administration of DJ Trump? Possibly not. But we're looking at 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. It will happen. And many of these bad actors running around here will be gone. They'll probably find some miracles where they're going. Who knows? They probably aren't going anywhere, but that's neither here nor there on that issue. But they will be out here, and they will be trying to pollute the air. And at the same time, in the U.S. context, you have an unfortunate situation with the Senate, with Schumer. Schumer, a known supporter of the Zionists, is now the leader of the Democratic Party there. And the Democratic Party is now looking for a new head. And they put up a straw candidate, Tom, what's his name, to oppose Keith Ellison. Keith Ellison is the highest and greatest hopes of the so-called Democratic Party. A Democratic Party without Keith Ellison will just be a Democratic Party with the same composition as the one that lost the 2016 election. It is that simple. It's schoolboy simple. And that is where the issues are heading. But in the U.S., our objective here is to fight the right-wing Trump administration. So the amount of time that we can spend, I posted today Rasmussen poll on this issue is kind of limited. It will take care of itself. There's a 50-50 chance that one of the states there, the Israeli state or whomever, will use some type of nuclear weapon in the next 4 years. Very real possibility. It can be delivered by horse-drawn carriages, mules, suitcases. They call it the dirty bomb. Or it can be fired from Tel Aviv or wherever their rocket forces are. It doesn't really matter. The point is that is where these people are heading. And there's very, very little one can do about it because they're putting accelerant on a fire. In other words, as the great civil rights leader John Lewis would say, they are playing with the fire. So that is where they are going. So we go on to the American Foreign Minister, John Kerry. And on some channels you will get the entire speech, and on other channels you will get about the last 20 minutes where he lays out a plan where they are, and he also acknowledges that the Trump administration will, as they say, change the chairs on the deck. But the Nespa will continue, and the Palestinian people will continue, and Abu Mazen will continue, and all we can say is, long live Palestine. Good day.
Because the two-state solution is the only way to achieve a just and lasting peace between Israelis and Palestinians. It is the only way to ensure Israel's future as a Jewish and democratic state, living in peace and security with its neighbors. It is the only way to ensure a future of freedom and dignity for the Palestinian people, and it is an important way of advancing United States interests in the region. Now, I'd like to explain why that future is now in jeopardy and provide some context for why we could not, in good conscience, stand in the way of a resolution at the United Nations that makes clear that both sides must act now to preserve the possibility of peace. I'm also here to share my conviction that there is still a way forward if the responsible parties are willing to act. And I want to share practical suggestions for how to preserve and advance the prospects for the just and lasting peace that both sides deserve. So it is vital that we have an honest, clear-eyed conversation about the uncomfortable truths and difficult choices, because the alternative that is fast becoming the reality on the ground is in nobody's interest. Not the Israelis, not the Palestinians, not the region, and not the United States. Now, I want to stress that there is an important point here. My job, above all, is to defend the United States of America, to stand up for and defend our values and our interests in the world. And if we were to stand idly by and know that in doing so we are allowing a dangerous dynamic to take hold, which promises greater conflict and instability to a region in which we have vital interests, we would be derelict in our own responsibilities. Regrettably, some seem to believe that the U.S. friendship means the U.S. must accept any policy, regardless of our own interests, our own positions, our own words, our own principles, even after urging again and again that the policy must change. Friends need to tell each other the hard truths, and friendships require mutual respect. Israel's permanent representative to the United Nations, who does not support a two-state solution, said after the vote last week, quote, "It was to be expected that Israel's greatest ally would act in accordance with the values that we share and veto this resolution." I am compelled to respond today that the United States did, in fact, vote in accordance with our values, just as previous U.S. administrations have done at the Security Council before us. They fail to recognize that this friend